when you have pride in something you're up to every single day, you work harder for it. You work harder for it, to it, on it, with it. You represent it, which in theater, because there are so many isolated jobs that actually work on the same thing, but I'm in my own corner of the theater, you should feel some ownership and pride on that production of what you built.
Can you achieve extraordinary results while making the world a better place? I'm Bruce Temkin, and together we'll explore how. Welcome to Humanity at Scale, Redefining Leadership podcast. Join me as I speak with visionary leaders and top experts to uncover the secrets of humanity-centric leadership. Ready to rethink leadership? Let's dive in. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Humanity at Scale, Redefining Leadership. There's a moment before a Broadway show begins. Lights down, room still, hundreds of strangers leaning in together. That's the magic of live theater. But behind that moment is a web of competing demands, bold artistic vision, financial pressure, high expectations from investors and collaborators, and the challenge of keeping large, diverse teams aligned and energized. It's one of the clearest arenas where leadership is tested, where it either scales or splinters. So how do you lead in a way that delivers creative excellence and business results without losing the people behind the work? That's what we're exploring today. And I'm thrilled to have a friend of mine, Brian Moreland, one of the most visionary producers on Broadway, joining me. Brian has helped bring some of Broadway's most impactful productions to life, including the groundbreaking revivals of Othello and The Wiz. His leadership philosophy goes beyond just making shows. It's about using theater as a platform for social dialogue, empathy, and lasting change. Brian, welcome to Humanity at Scale. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy and honored to be here.
Well, it's awesome. Now, I know that the people listening may not be all theater enthusiasts, so they may not understand the hierarchical intricacies of the theater. Could you talk us through your role as a producer, your responsibilities, and how that sits alongside other roles like directors and other departments?
Oh, great question. Let me give like a little context to it. So Broadway is comprised of 41 individual buildings, and I like to say they are 41 individual startups, right? They're 41 LLCs every single time a new show goes in. And the best way to describe my role as producer is that I'm the founder of it. I am the person that goes and builds the budget. I find the seed money. I find the investors. I sell off the shares for investment within the production itself. And I am the one that signs my name to the SEC. So I'm fiduciarily responsible for the entire show itself, from the securing of the theater to securing the funds, the talent on stage, the production crew, and every ancillary office that actually supports the entire building. There are 16 unions inside every Broadway house. So it's a very, very full team. So it's a full service position as a producer for Broadway.
Cool. What pulled you into the world of theater and specifically got you into producing?
I've always been drawn to theater. I tell this story where I was in third grade, and your elementary school, and the teacher called my mom and asked my mother if I could be a part of the school play. My mother said yes. And then that teacher said, well, could you make the costume? And then my mother said, of course. So she made my costume for a third grade play called Be What You Want to Be, and I played Santa Claus. Now, I can't say to you, I remember every single moment of this show, but I can say I went on, I came off, and I thought, I want to do that again. That was it. And it was the best feeling ever. And I knew in third grade that I wanted to be in theater. So I spent the first half of my life doing that. I was a performer, acting, singing, dancing, cruise ships, workshops, West End, New York, all of it. And I got very lucky to have a really full career. And then along the way, I met Debbie Allen, and she gave me a producing job. And that job was one that I really, really liked. And it turned out to be line producing initially for a show. But it wasn't about producing the way I produce now, but it was the skill sets were the same in terms of dealing with volumes of people and details and running the risk of who you're putting together and who you're hiring. So that was my foray into producing.
So I'm wondering, like early in your career as a producer, when you started that path, Was there something that you really are proud of earlier in your career that said, "Oh my goodness, this is awesome. I can do this, and I really want to bring this forward." Something, a moment you remember as being sort of pivotal in driving you ahead?
Yes, it was the first time that I got my first Broadway theater for my first show that I was the lead producer on. I had been working on this show called Thoughts of a Colored Man, written by Keenan Scott II, and I had worked on it for almost 5 years, which is not an unheard of amount of time. But shows do take a long time to write and then a long time to workshop, and then you have to find a place out of town for the show to go. So it was a real labor of love. And when you go and secure one of these Broadway houses, you start this dialogue with your theater owner, and your theater owner has to believe in what you want to put up on the stage. They have to believe in your casting vision. They have to believe that you're going to secure all of the funds that are needed, because sometimes at that point in time, you don't have the money in the bank. So this is all just theory. It's all an idea. Well, do you believe in my idea to move this forward? And when I finally got the yes from the Schubert organization for that show, that my first show was going to go into the Golden Theater, I thought, wow, yes, I can do this. You believe in what I believed in when I started this show, and so there was the best feeling.
So, when you're building a team for a new show, how do you think about setting the culture of the group from day one?
That is such a good question. After the director's selected, I sit down with the director and we start to talk about what the design needs are of the show, like what type of set you are interested in, what type of costumes are you interested in, and then we start to build lists of people that could possibly do those particular jobs. And then once those core tent poles are cemented, I would say the director, the set designer, and the costume designer and the lighting designer. Once those core principles are set, for me, it's about building around an environment for them that will allow them to do their best work. So I start to think about who is a stage manager that can actually be a good representation of me, because this person will be in the room every day. They will be in the theater every night. And so it has to be someone that not only works well for those designers and the director, but also works well for me as producer to communicate with me and be in touch. And so I start to think about their needs first. Then once their needs are met in terms of those four temples, then I build out their teams. And then we talk about what happens after that. So it's a real ripple effect. I think the first pebble would be the director, and then the next layer of ripples are the designers, and then everyone else that comes along.
So, how do you, if you've done it well, like in a way that you feel you're proud of and have created, how would you describe the working environment of that type of a production where it sort of is exactly how you'd envision it to be?
It comes together in parts. So it's like my first part as producer is all administrative. It is all boring paperwork, budgets and contracts and your lawyers and all of that. Once that part is, and that's all just sitting with me and my desk and my associate. Once that's done, then I'm dealing with the director and their job starts immediately, because we're talking about who's going to be in this and what do you think? What do I think? And then that timeline can be a little loose.
What do you consider the hardest part of your role when after you've selected the director and the show's starting? What do you find your most difficult challenge at that point in time?
Holding the vision and making sure that all the departments feel supported.
Interesting.
Yeah, oftentimes there's so many people that touch the show. You have to find a way to they all stay connected to what we all talked that we were going to do. And sometimes that can get difficult, as you have to make decisions based upon the size of your budget. Sometimes all of a sudden in the last hour, there's a huge idea, but this idea might be $50,000. And that might be $50,000 over the budget, which you are already over the budget. And so it really all depends upon how you hold them together, how you keep them accountable to the vision, and rowing in the same direction, even when the new things come up or even when the challenges come up.
Cool. Well, I want to dig into that because if you just look like one your most recent Othello, right? You worked with household names like Denzel Washington, Jake Gyllenhaal, alongside dozens and dozens of people off stage doing essential, often invisible work, right? How do you create a sense of sort of shared vision across that wide a group of people? Like, what are your tricks and tips for people who are trying to instill vision in that diverse group of people?
Open communication and presence. I spend a great deal of time on the first day when they load in the very, very first piece of equipment into the theater. I go over, I say hello to the entire team. I welcome them to the theater. I have no duty at the theater, no actual physical job at the theater at that particular point in time, other than my goal is to come to say hi and hello to the males and females who are actually there loading in the vision we've all been talking about. Once I talk to them, then I make my way through the building to see the other departments and say hi and hello to them and welcome them. Because for many of them, we will not see them until we actually move into the building. And so not seeing them, not saying hello is how people feel disconnected. It becomes just a job. There's no ownership and pride in it. The following week, the ushers start to come in. The ushers have a meeting every morning, and I go right before every show. And I go and I say hello to the ushers and hello and thank you and welcome. And it's so good to have you. I can't wait to share this time with you in this building that is your workplace every day.
So it sounds like what you're trying to do is sort of, while you're the producer, share ownership of the show with everyone involved, right?
So
Sounds like get them to feel like they're a little owner of it.
yes, when you have pride in something you're up to every single day, you work harder for it. You work harder for it, to it, on it, with it. You represent it, which in theater, because there are so many isolated jobs that actually work on the same thing, but I'm in my own corner of the theater, you should feel some ownership and pride on that production of what you built, because it is the work, as you said so eloquently, it's the work that you don't see. You see the actual performing cast, you see the ushers who have taken your ticket and welcome you to your seat, but you don't see the countless stage managers that are back there calling the show, or the people who are automating the fly system, or all the dressers, or the maintenance crew, and like, you don't see these people, but you are experiencing their work on the stage.
Awesome. So you said you don't want to be seen with the people only when there are problems. You want them to see, but I want to talk about some of those problems because I'm sure you run into them. Can you share a time when your leadership was tested and what you learned from the experience?
Oh, yeah. I was I was on tour with the show, and we were moving theaters, going from one theater to another one. And this theater, for the long time, everyone knew on the tour route that this particular theater was going to be our worst load-in ever. And it was really only all because of the shape of the driveway, trying to you could only put one truck in at a time versus two or three trucks, which we were able to do in other theater locations. I walked into the theater and there was utter chaos. We had infighting on our design team from different departments. I need this. I was not told this. Look at this. Look, and they were all about problems that were information based. That all of us had the wrong information. Everyone. And that information caused chaos within, because now people start to fight for their department, for their contribution to that. You know, the sound department is saying, listen, the proscenium won't hold that speaker and I need time to do. The lighting department is saying, I can't get to my lights right now because the sound is in the way and the set has not even come in yet. And the dressers are like, where are the rest of the costumes? And so this is all about misinformation. And so I literally went to each person, the 6 departments that were truly affected, and I said, please tell me your actual concern so that I can actually go away and work on it. Again, because there was so much misinformation about this particular theater location, I collected all of their information and what the challenges were for that particular moment. And I went over to our production on-site supervisor and said, listen, this is all I need to know for this person, this person, this person, this person. Tell me what the answer is for that, for what we know right now. And the person proceeded to give me backstory and context. I said, no, no, no. It doesn't matter to me how we got here. That's in a postmortem right now. Right now, I want to know what is the problem that is missing in the information chain here. And they were able to answer those questions succinctly. I took it back to the 6 departments, and we had a group meeting at the end of individually speaking with them to clarify all of it, and we got back on track, and we had a show that evening. What I learned out of that is you as individual leader also have to know the information, because I realized I disengaged 100%. I take full responsibility. I thought the jump is happening. I know that we are moving into a challenging space. We have all this information about the driveway. And if one of us in leadership had stopped to just check in before all of those things were happening, even though we had the information, I think it still could have gone the way it was going in terms of the challenges, but people would have been more prepared and expected the challenges as opposed to allow them to be a surprise.
Awesome. So there's like two parts of that. Like one part is sort of, which is great, you taking ownership for like maybe knowing about that stuff a little more in advance. But I loved when you faced it, you used the word challenges. And it's almost like if I heard the beginning part of that story, you deciphered the challenges from the complaints. Right? People complain about things, and there's a lot of noise in those complaints, some facts, some emotions, right? And if you deal with that, you have to figure out what the what are you really challenging? What are the real issues here? And let's deal with that. And I loved the description of postmortem, right? So it sounds like when you're fast paced, you've built the ability to try and understand what is the core issue here. Right? It sounds like that's a core skill for you as a producer.
Thank you. I didn't think about it that way. Yes. Yes. I think when you're building a plane and flying a plane, you can't ask what is wrong with the luggage, the overhead luggage compartment while you're sitting in the air. Like, I think you've got to do both and sift and distill and get rid of the emotion and deal with the core problem.
So I want to talk a little bit about pulling together a new show, right? Each new production, it requires a leap of faith, emotionally, creatively, financially. And I wonder how, when you're thinking about a new project, what are your goals for the production and what metrics do you use to define its ultimate success?
So success for me for theater is broken into a couple of different categories. One, did I create an environment safe enough for the actors on stage to thrive, right? Whether good, bad, or indifferent, they are the ones out there every single night. They are the ones who feel feel the most visceral response from the audience if the job is done well or if it's not done well. But if they are supported and feel good in their process, then that's a marker of success for me. One. Two is financial recoupment for my investors. My job is to, in part, provide entertainment, but also, because Broadway is a privately funded venture, I also have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure my investors get their money back. And hopefully, if we're really lucky, I can turn a profit as well. Not only get their money back, but they can also make some money on their particular level of investment. So that is considered to be success for me as well. Success for the actors, success for my investors, recoupment.
So I love what you said, they intersect in a beautiful way. And as we know, our hopes of intersection of multiple things don't always happen how we like. How do you balance when there's some conflict between creative and financial needs? You have to solve one of those and it's hard to get all of them all at once.
I have a great story about this. During Othello, we learned very early on that we needed some stairs in order to access the aisles from the audience side to the actual stage. And then we had some safety concerns about leaving stairs in the aisle for the entire run of the show. You know, we've now shown people how to get to the stage. We want to make sure that, again, the actors stay safe on stage. So the idea came up, well, let's make them retractable so that stairs only come out when they're needed and they go right back into the stage itself. Well, this is a fantastic idea that comes with a hefty price tag. And so then it was, all right, well, that's going to cost about $30,000. Okay, how do we do that? Well, in the tinkering of the theater, our lighting designer moved one of her lights, and all of a sudden, that particular light allowed us to add another allowed us to add another seat to that particular row, and the math on the seat was able to pay for the retractable stairs because we found this one single seat. So that problem was solved. Sometimes, but sometimes, in all honesty, it comes down to how far over budget are we? How far over budget are we, and how urgent is this request needed for the vision? It always comes back down to the vision. If I come to you, or you come to me and you ask me for this huge staircase that is just, I must have this staircase, otherwise there's just no story. Okay, you realize we open in 2 days. Yes. So tell me why this staircase is so intrinsic to the story right now, and we didn't need it a couple of days ago, or last month, or last year, or even in the original design. Like, what is happening on the stage? And usually, there's through that conversation back and forth with your director, or the creative of the person who's making that ask, they work it out for themselves and see, oh, you know what? I don't need this, but it feels like you do in the moment. So it goes back to open communication and facing it head on. It's the same thing if the show's not working financially. My job is also to be honest with my investors. There's no point in trying to massage the numbers so that it massages the news for your investors when the outcome is going to be the same and they're going to get the report. The only difference is, were you honest with me in the process so I know what's going on?
If you're enjoying this episode, make sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss a conversation. We've got plenty more great stories coming your way. That's cool. I think for all of our listeners, I think we're going to capture a strategy from Brian. It's called the one seat funding model. So as you reflect back on Othello that just recently ended, how would you describe how well it did and where some of the shortfalls were maybe in the production?
One of the things I think was done so well was that we had an excellent director, one of our tentpoles. We had designers who were
Wait, let's give Kenny a shout out by name.
Kenny Leon, a masterful director, great vision, great communicator, very open, very attentive, will always be in conversation with you when there is a challenge, always. So that was number one. We had Kenny Leon. We had a wonderful cast led by Denzel Washington and Jake Gyllenhaal, who were the leaders of this company, who made it their number one. Well, I'm going to say number one. Their number one job was to be the bridge for the company. So it wasn't always about them. It's about all of us. So there's the director, the two of them. And there's this understanding that what we're doing with this show, it can be really, really powerful. And I learned one of the positive things about that was that it also comes with a different price tag because those people can command such dollars on their own. The only difference with this particular show was that we put two megawatt stars together. I call it lightning in a bottle. If we ever get another pairing like that in my lifetime, it'll be amazing. But it's lightning in the bottle, which actually drove up the cost on the ticket. But I think one of the biggest regrets I have is that this is going to go viral, Bruce. One of the biggest regrets I have is the notion that the ticketing information and messaging was not clear. It was not clear. And we did have a seat that was selling for over $900, but that was maybe less than 10% of the inventory. The rest of the inventory started as low as $125 all the way up there. And so those tickets were always available. And I wish that we were able to, we have something called core reporting where the ticketing system will kick out the amount of tickets sold for every single category on a daily basis for all the transactions. And you can just see all the range of ticket prices. But once the press gets a hold of it and gets out there in the negative, you can't fix it. You can't fix it. So that's my biggest regret, because the show deserved to be spoken of more than the price of admission.
So those of you who didn't follow the news, Othello got, I think, wrongfully defined as sort of a super expensive show. When a lot of those prices that Brian's talking about are driven by demand generated pricing, and the aftermarket would charge those prices for them anyway. But as Brian said, he worked hard to make sure that there were a bunch of accessible seats to all shows at reasonable prices. So if you look back at Othello, and I want to give Kenny a big shout out too, because I love the show, and I have to say, going in, it was Shakespeare and Shakespearean language, and I was thinking, oh my God, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but boy, was it wonderfully rethought out, modernized. The acting was great, and I'll share with you my view is Jake put on one of the most spectacular, and I see a lot of theater. Jake put on one of the most outstanding roles I've ever seen on stage, just interpreting it in a way I've never seen. So having said all that, and I'm no Broadway reviewer, but to me, it was the best play I'd seen of the year, and it was outstanding. Yet we didn't get any Tony nominations, right? So that ends up being, on every measure it was successful. And one of the things you talked about was critical acclaim as a goal. So how do you balance that and make the team feel really good about the other elements when one of the things doesn't quite work out the way you'd want?
That's another great question, Bruce. I'm personally going to say it's very hard and it's very challenging. I would love to say to you on the morning when we were not nominated that it was, we were able just to say, oh, great, no problem. Let's just go to work. And that was not the conversation. The conversation on the morning of it was very sad. It was very sad, but then it was like, okay, but you know what? Here are all the things that we have done. And here are all the things that we have done well. And so that particular day, I got to the theater and I called the entire company forward. Spirits were tender. They were tender. And I just did, this particular day happens. It does not define us, as Kenny Leon said in the very first day that, people stand up for all shows these days. That is not your barometer of success when you're doing Shakespeare's Othello. That is not our barometer. Our barometer is, are we telling the story? Are we being honest with ourselves? Are we being honest with the audience? If we can answer those questions and say yes, then we've done a good job and we don't need those things over there. And I said, I want to remind us all of that. And I also want you to go away and congratulate your friends and tell them congratulations and say good job, because it is not their fault that we were not nominated. And you should be happy for them as a friend that they were nominated. And I said, I'm going to be okay. I'm not ready to have an Oprah Super Soul conversation about it, Rhett. But I do think that we did a great job. And Denzel always says this, and he said it that day as well. He said, man gives the award, God gives the reward.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's a good way to end this segment, which is talking about your leadership. And it's a wonderful way to show, even in difficult times, you can still lead in a powerful human way. I know that sort of one of the things that you really believe in is mentorship. And I know mentorship is important to you. How are you thinking about mentorship now in your own productions and beyond, and what you can do to that in Broadway in general?
I've tapped into the resources that are available at the moment in terms of people need to be paid. They need to be paid in order to actually have time to learn something. I think when it's theater, like a good dancer being trained, is at its best when it's passed from one person's hands to the next. All right. It's a very, very old school way of on the job training or apprentice programs that we used to always foster in multiple job fields so that people can learn, because it's not necessarily something you're going to learn in a textbook. It's really about dealing with people and situations and problem solving and listening and being open at the same time while still being close to certain things so you can keep that vision going. So for me, I use the New York State tax credit to have two fellows on the production to actually be able to work with them and give them access, all that access them saying that they need in order to actually learn how to do the job. I had one fellow who was so good, I hired him for my company. So I believe in mentorship, and it only gets better when you actually open the door. And so for this next round, I'm trying to figure out a way to double my mentorship program for people, and so they have access to the theater.
And I know, Access, one of the things I think you said that it's not enough to put diverse stories on stage, but you also want to get to fund them, have people with diverse backgrounds fund and shape them.
Yes.
Like, how do you envision is mentorship's a part of that, right? Giving people access, and there are there other parts to what you'd like to see change on Broadway?
Across the board, I just think that when people from different cultural backgrounds come together, there is always something extraordinary that comes from it. Because I think culturally speaking, all of our backgrounds really do they're all intertwined. I think we all have the same DNA down there. But at the same time, when you try to segment and you try to stop it, it puts it off balance. I think it's so wrong that the scale just keeps going like this because I think the world needs this. They want balance, and balance comes from different colors, cultural backgrounds working together. Balance comes from if you're an investor, different investors of different backgrounds investing in that, so that builds generational wealth for that particular cultural background person. If it's a ticket buyer, if they come to different shows, they learn different things, which they can apply to their livelihoods and their communities and their friendship groups and circles. And change happens that way when it's incremental, it's slow, it's steady. But if we were always thinking about balancing that scale of unity, of diversity, of cultural alignment, I just think we'd be in a completely different place of understanding across the board, not just in the small corner of the Broadway world, but the world at large. We would be in a better place.
It's interesting because I think that just your role and you being successful in it in the way that you're doing is actually driving change at Broadway, right? Because, you're not like the standard of a production or a producer on Broadway, right? So, how do you think about your role as both someone who is succeeding inside of the traditional boundaries of Broadway while also trying to change and broaden the view of Broadway. So succeeding within while trying to change it simultaneously. What does that feel like as a change agent?
It feels well. It actually feels good when you say it the way you said it. But I never process it that way. I look at every new venture as a learning experience. I need to learn what the rules are here. What is the framework? What is the structure? What has happened here before that has caused this particular thing to happen? So I just have understanding. And once I understand it, then I go, okay, great. Now I think this is my path in it. And then I think, okay, these are the things I want to do to bring other people in. And so I think the only way to do that is to spend time to try to understand whatever system you're actually working within first. And then you can offer feedback or offer suggestions or solutions of avenues to open the floodgates more because you now know what gates have been closed. I don't think you can offer floodgates and change if you don't know where the gates of change are.
So that's a good one, right? Which is all of the change agents out there who try to act like a blunt instrument, just running out and trying to change. They get thrown over by the waters that come when you let down the floodgates. They just get washed away. So changing from in by knowing the system is probably good advice for anyone out there trying to change any system in any organization as well.
Yeah, I can give you a really good example of it. In my last three productions, I've over-indexed in first-time ticket buyers. All three over-indexed by over 70%. And people kept saying, I don't understand, why is that happening? I go, what are you doing that's so different? You go to the same people and same spaces. By sitting down to learn about what happens within the business, I learned that one of the reasons why our audiences were looking less and less diverse in age, diverse in cultural backgrounds, diverse in color, all of it, was because we rely upon our marketing companies which when it's time to target people target different communities, we do it based upon zip code. And we look at the zip code and we go, oh, this zip code has this demographic of person and they're going to buy tickets to this particular show and we're done. Okay, but what about that's good for the Upper East Side, but what about Brooklyn? Or what about Harlem over there? Or what about folks out in Staten Island? Oh, we don't target those addresses. But those people are the people who should actually be here in this. Oh, well, we'd have to go beyond that. I said, oh, okay. So there's a lot of control here solely based, or a lot of challenge in terms of audience development is solely based on the zip code. So we just got to expand the zip code. That's it. You expand the zip code. When we expanded the zip code, all of a sudden other people started coming and started buying because we weren't using the traditional zip code of that information.
I love that example because that's a perfect example of change within the system. You didn't say change how we market altogether, just looking at how you were marketing and said, do the same thing, but do it a little bit differently and unlocks all this greatness. Awesome. So I want to shift to now thinking a little bit about the future. If you imagine Broadway 10 years from now, what's one change you'd love to see become real?
I would love to see more individual lead producers of color, Black, Jewish, Chinese, Latin. I would like to see that. And I would like to see that because the producers are the first ones to believe. There are always wonderful playwrights and always wonderful composers and wonderful choreographers. Like that arc will always continue to happen. But the act of someone seeing your work or reading your work and wanting to put it together and wanting to bring it to Broadway, that takes the vision of the producer saying, you know what, I want that story or I want to put that work on stage. If we had more people that were more diverse in cultural background and experience, I think theater would be a new golden age of theater.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Now I want to, in that same 10-year time frame, ask about what do you hope that your legacy and impact will be on theater 10 years out?
I've never thought about that, Bruce. I think I would like to be known as a producer that gave opportunity to a lot of people, particularly people of color. I would like to be known as when I'm negotiating that the first offer was the best offer. But to really just be a fair person. I think that's what I want to be known for. Theater just lost a huge legend in the community. His name was Paul Libben, who was the president of Circle in the Square and our only theater in the rounds in Broadway. And Paul was a remarkable man. And the stories that people have to share about him are endless. And they're all stories of small acts of kindness that affected many, many people in many different ways. And so I think that's a great legacy to have, is that people to have that feeling of you.
Oh, that's awesome. So we're on the home stretch, but before we wrap, I want to ask you 3 questions that I ask all of my guests. The first one is what's one leadership skill you think will become even more important in the future?
Direct communication. And by direct communication, I mean not communication through a device, not just a quick little text, not just here's the email. I think what you and I are doing right now, speaking human to human, I think that is the skill set that I think is going to be the most important skill set for any leader.
Awesome. The second one is if you could wave a magic wand, what's one thing you'd change to make organizations more humanity-centric?
If I can make one change with one sweet wand, I would look for more female presidents. I'd look for the first female president. And that way, and I can make it very quick. I think that way because I think that we are in need. We are in need of leadership from a different point of view. And it's one that has historically not been within this country. So that, I think, would permeate many, many, many things to have that person in that seat.
You are using the full power of that magic wand. Last question. What's one final piece of advice you have that you want to leave with our listeners?
When someone says no, I really hear it's not right now. It's not. It's not a no, it's not right now. And I think that if you live your life by it, like no is just equates to not right now, you can keep going and you have to keep going because it's never going to be easy. Jennifer Lewis, whom I adore, this wonderful actress, gave this wonderful anecdote and she said, and I will never forget it because it was so good. She said, the elevator to success is broken. You must take the stairs.
Awesome. And I think that's a perfect place to leave this, Brian. Thanks for joining me on the show. It's been wonderful chatting with you as always.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. I was so looking forward to this and it did not disappoint. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I hope you found my conversation with Brian as insightful and inspiring as I did. Now let's dive into the after show, a segment where I'll reflect on the key takeaways from this episode. Welcome to the after show. It was truly fascinating to hear Brian pull back the curtain on what it means to be a Broadway producer. Here are 5 leadership takeaways from the conversation that I'll be carrying with me. The first is to build a clear vision and keep everyone aligned to it. Brian explained that part of his job as a producer is to constantly hold and protect the creative vision. You hold them together, you keep them accountable to the vision and rowing in the same direction. Whether he's talking to designers, casts, or investors, he keeps checking that each choice aligns with the story they're trying to tell. The second takeaway is to make everyone feel like the show belongs to them. When talking about culture, Brian said, I want the ushers to feel just as important as Denzel and Jake. He shared how he walks the theater, talks to crew members, and stays engaged with every part of the operation. That presence and respect create a culture where everyone, from stars to staff, feels essential to the outcome. The third takeaway is to stay calm and focused when things go sideways. Brian described how he handles pressure during high-stakes moments. I don't need a post-mortem right now. I need to fix it. He looks for facts, asks clear questions, and avoids emotional reactions. His leadership in those moments comes from calm, not control, focusing on the challenges needed to fix, not on the drama that people have. The fourth takeaway is to drive change by learning the system first. Brian doesn't push for change by bulldozing the system. Instead, he said, you can't change Broadway as a blunt instrument. You have to learn it. He studies how decisions are made, from marketing to funding, and then works to influence those points directly, like marketing to additional zip codes in order to diversify the audience for a show. The fifth takeaway is that you should invest in mentorship and open the door for others. Brian said it clearly, mentorship is everything. He shared that Debbie Allen gave him his first shot, inviting him into rehearsals at the Kennedy Center and allowing him to learn by being present. That experience shaped how he now brings others along with access, credit, and guidance. Brian's path is a powerful reminder that leadership isn't just about directing traffic. It's about holding space, elevating others, and pushing the system forward without breaking the people inside of it. So here's the question I'll leave you with. When the spotlight is on, who's still in the shadows, and what's your responsibility to bring them forward? That's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for tuning in to Humanity at Scale, Redefining Leadership podcast. Remember, true leadership isn't only about achieving short-term results. It's about creating a lasting, positive impact on all of the people you touch. Join me next time as we uncover more insights and strategies for humanity-centric leadership. Until then, I'm Bruce Temkin, encouraging you to lead with purpose and empathy and to be the spark that elevates humanity at scale.